Hi guys, and welcome back to another edition of Too Many Cooks. I almost forgot the name of the show for a second then, with Marie Oser, who I'm delighted to join us. She's a real expert in her area. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun today, so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
It's honestly my privilege, and I hope the viewers and listeners get as much out of this as I'm sure I definitely will. I always start as is expected in like chronology and kind of trying to understand where the kind of fascination and expertise, where that kind of role came from. And you, it seems from everything I've read about you, were a vegetarian super early in 1971 when you were a teenager, I imagine. Given that was just given some maths, given when you did college, I was like, you probably were a teenager, I guess. What was it like? What led you to become a vegetarian at a time, I imagine, when it wasn't really in vogue, shall we say?
Well, you know, when I was 12 years old, I grew up in an Italian household, the Italian background, and I was 12 years old before I realized that a meatball actually had another incarnation. You know, it was a meatball. It was food. Your mother put it on the plate. You ate it. It was, you know, you didn't think about it. And I was freaked out by that. But as you know, you're living at home with your family, and they kind of force you into. But it bothered me. It really bothered me. Years later. Not a lot, but years later, I read a book called Diet for a Small Planet. This is back in the 70s, and my late 60s, early 70s. And Diet for a Small Planet, Francis Moore Lapay, and it made sense to me. And I just went vegetarian. I had these things were bothering me. I've always been a gourmet cook. I've always loved playing with food. I went into the kitchen when I was 12 years old and started cooking for my family. So, but when I would handle, say, boneless chicken breasts, for instance, I would always wear gloves because I didn't want to touch it.
Right.
That was while I was eating meat. I mean, that's when I was a meat eater, and so I always had in the back of my mind, on some level, it always bothered me. So that book, though, was the thing that really influenced me at that point, and I went vegetarian. So for 19 years, I was vegetarian, and I sort of hung on to cheese, I think, as most people do. It's addicting, and I, as again Italian, we put cheese on everything. So there I was at much later in my life, had a blood test for, I was changing my insurance, and they put you through these, they give you a little blood test. And after 19 years as a vegetarian, my blood cholesterol was 240.
I don't know if is that a good thing or a bad thing.
No, it's not a good thing.
Okay.
It's not a good thing. It's not a good. I mean, they will tell you that it's borderline or whatever, but it's bad.
Right.
I was shocked. I was really shocked, and at that point, I just went vegan. That was in 1990. So I went vegan immediately, and as with so many people, I chose to go vegan because, well, my health, wow, it was just a shock. And I realized cheese, I wasn't a big egg eater, but I love baking. So I would put eggs in that, I put cheese on everything. So I stopped that and had to develop ways to bake and had to develop ways to make cheese sauces and such. And Bon Appetit, this is really getting into the weeds, but in Bon Appetit, there was this article I saw right after I'd gone vegan, using applesauce to replace fat, kind of thing. And I thought, oh, let me try that. Found out about, you know, it was okay. Then I found out about prune puree, which baking without fat is something that I do. I use no added fat at all, no eggs, no dairy, of course. And I got quite good at it using prune puree. So I thought, this is kind of cool. And I've always wanted to be a writer. A lot of things came together at one point. I went vegan, and I was working in television on the other side of the camera. I was producing 30 and 60-second spots for regional television, and I had it's stressful, very stressful, and so I went vegan. I took a break from that profession, from doing that. I just had to take a break. And I had always wanted to be a writer. I was the person in the office who was always writing everybody's cover letters, or they would give me their stuff to look at and to correct and whatever. I just have I've always been a communicator. I have a way with language. So I decided, well, why don't I try writing about this? This is kind of cool. And the first article I wrote was Indian vegetarian cooking, that, because I love the ethnic foods and the spices of Indian food, and I found that everything I wrote, I sold everything I wrote. Everybody, it was good, and I started writing for national magazines, and eventually was I had a newspaper column. I became a newspaper columnist. I wrote for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and King Features came in and picked it up, and Scripps Howard. So I mean, that was what happened early in my career. Being vegan and promoting veganism, promoting the plant-based diet, became my career, my life. It is my life. For 30 years, I have been pushing that vegan boulder uphill, and now vegan is the new black, right? Everybody wants a piece of that plant-based and tell me about it. And so that's where I find myself these days. I have a good following. People like I produce videos. Veg TV is my company, and I produce videos. I became a video editor. I love editing video. I love editing, and I love writing. And so it's all about telling a story. Right?
When you were writing so people that don't know, you were probably a freelance journalist writing things, hoping it would get picked up, right?
Yes.
At that point in time, with a very few people even covering vegan and vegetarian diets, and you were kind of like, oh, someone would see this and go, oh, this is a different angle, we'll go with it. Was that the kind of, the feeling?
Well, I've always done my own nutrition analyses, and I always took it, I'm a food and health writer, basically, and I always took it from a nutrition and health point of view, but I'm also a gourmet cook. And so I love making outrageous, I have an instinctive, again, I think it's because I'm Italian, born with a spatula in our hands somehow. Even the men, even Italian men love to cook, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that all kind of came together. I think it was great food, and a strong nutrition component to what I do. I like doing research. I like research, and much of what I write is footnoted with citations and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's part of it. Yeah.
One big thing that you've done since 1994. You've been a best-selling author with a bunch of different books. Two to name: Soy of Cooking, and more recently, The Skinny on Soy, which you sent me over to have a look at. And what I found fascinating is when you go on the Veg TV website, which I'll put a link in the description, you can have a look at it with pleasure. There's so many very well-renowned people, doctors and nutrition experts that kind of commend you on your work. And I think that speaks volumes of kind of the fact that you really look into what you're talking about and you speak from a position of authority. And that was the reason this whole channel was created, really, was because there's so much information out there, and we'll come on to Soy in a second, for example, that is just utter garbage, and it's written by people who don't know what they're talking about, who've got a decent following, or they're controversial in whatever manner, and people are just lapping this thing up because it's good sound bites. But actually, it's really dangerous because people are then malnourished and eating the wrong foods, and it's just very, very chaotic out there. So it's a real pleasure, I said before, but to bring someone on that's super kind of known in the community. In terms of soy, so let's from the basics, right? Because say someone doesn't know what it is. It's a bean, right? Like, how's it used? What's the deal with it?
Yeah, well, soy is very interesting. The soy legumes are very high in protein. They're good for you. Beans and rice have always been a staple for centuries, for a staple, but traditionally, of course, for many ethnic groups, but particularly for vegetarians, beans and rice. Back to Francis Moore Lappé, who said, you have to do food combining. Not true. You can take into consideration what you eat in a day. There's plenty of protein in plant foods, and in soy particularly. Soy is one of the few plant foods that has what is considered a complete protein. Because from the turn of the last century, what was used as the what am I looking for? I'm looking for what has been used as the guideline. Let's use that word. As the guideline has been animal protein, and which is an animal protein has been developed. It has been associated with a necessary complete protein in order to build bones, not bones, to build
muscle and all the rest of it.
Thank you, muscles and organs and such. But the fact is that proteins in your body will build and will work together and form. But soy does contain all of the 9 essential, what are considered the essential amino acids. So it is a great replacement for people who are used to getting their protein component or from getting their nutrition even from animal products. Animal products are totally unnecessary. There are many reasons not to consume animal products, not the least of which it causes cancer and heart disease. It clogs the arteries, the saturated fat, the cholesterol. We don't need dietary cholesterol. Our livers will produce all of the cholesterol that your body needs. So it's something that is, and so to get to the whole soy issue, there has been a smear campaign, that has been launched against soy. It's been a couple decades now, and I believe, and I do know for a fact that the animal products industry has been threatened by soy foods. Soy foods are, a threat to their bottom line. It's becoming even more obvious these days as dairies go out of business, because soy, I always say that soy milk is the gateway drug to veganism, because people who say they will never be vegan or never be vegetarian drink soy milk. They like it. It's actually quite tasty, and it doesn't have any of the horrible baggage that comes with drinking cow milk, which is very high in saturated fat, has cholesterol, and it contains the same amount of, the same 8 grams of protein that you'll find in cow milk, complete protein, you'll find in soy. So there's been a cottage industry over the years bashing soy. I call them soy bashers. But I have a hashtag I use called winning with an exclamation point. And so, winning, people will over the years come to realize, and they have, they've been, I understand. I certainly understand that people can be confused, not just about soy, but about veganism, about the plant-based diet in general, because there's been such a concerted campaign. People don't realize also that, you know, a lot of what you see, the baby back ribs and all of the restaurants, and you know, when you go vegan or you go plant-based, you begin to see how every commercial is either a restaurant selling meat products or a dairy selling milk or somebody, you know, with wearing leather. How much of what is produced in the economy comes from animals, and it's not necessary. So that's kind of been turned around now, I believe. I think that people are beginning to notice, beginning to see after all these years that people who have been kind of crying out in the forest and in the wilderness, that they had something to say that was worth listening to.
And in terms of soy, so there's a couple of things. So I'm lactose intolerant, right? So that was my gateway into this world, and most people listening, I kind of go on about it a bit, but I've lost a stone and feel much healthier in the last. I started in January of this year, and the only meat that I have is on a Friday night. I'm Jewish. My mum makes chicken, and it's just easier, right?
Yeah.
Other than that, it's all pretty much vegan near enough, and I found it not difficult at all. It's far easier now, I'm sure, than when you were growing up, absolutely. And I'd recommend it, right? But there's also some things, particularly in soy, that are, I remember talking about, going back to my lactose intolerance, a friend of mine in America, I said to him, I was over in LA, and I was talking about soy milk, because that's what I was using as a replacement for milk at the time. And his comment, as I'm sure you're gonna laugh when you hear it, because you hear it a million times a day, is, oh, it's got such high levels of estrogen that like you're gonna develop like man boobs. And I'm like,
yeah,
what? Like what is that about? Like can you dispel that once and for all?
Well, back in 2001, I believe it was, Men's Health magazine, huge following, huge, you know, readership, I should say, published an article. And this article was just, you know, the internet is amazing, but it's also a sounding board, and things get repeated and repeated, and you know, posted and reposted.
Yeah.
It got a huge response, and in this article, they said that this gentleman, I can't remember his name right now, developed gynecomastia. Gynecomastia is what you call man boobs, is where you know, they don't get like huge boobs,
sure,
but you know, they get this little soft tissue, and the nipples grow and such. And he developed gynecomastia from drinking soy milk. So I did a little research into that, and for one thing, the gentleman was in Vietnam and was exposed to Agent Orange. Aside from that, he drank, I don't know, 6 quarts of soy milk a day, some ridiculous, you know, so I don't even know how you can drink 6 quarts of anything a day, but he drank a huge amount of soy milk every day, very unusual. And he is the only, this is the only case that's ever been, you know.
Right.
Now, you can develop gynecomastia from, let me turn the sound down. Oh, wait, there. You can develop gynecomastia from certain pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah.
There are other causes of gynecomastia. It is, but it's very rare, and it is not caused by soy. The very people, it's very interesting, but the people who are most vocal about the hormones in soy have no problem drinking cow milk, which is just nothing but hormones. A cow who is a dairy cow who weighs, I don't know, a ton or so. This dairy cow is female, and she has all these female hormones that occur naturally in the, occur naturally in the volume that you would expect for a 1-ton cow.
Sure.
She is also, what people don't realize, another thing, dairy cows are pregnant for 10 months of the year.
All right.
Keep them pregnant because that's the only way you can get milk. Only lactating, you're lactating because you had a baby. So they keep them pregnant, and so that beverage that these people are drinking is also full of IGF-1 hormones, which are natural. It is a growth hormone. I was a nursing mother. My milk had IGF-1 hormone in it. It is a natural growth hormone that takes that baby or that calf from a 90-pound calf to a 1-ton animal in, less than a year. And then there are other hormones that they put in there. There are antibiotics. They all have mastitis, hooked up to machines. So there's all these other. They have no compunction about drinking that. But they will talk about the phytoestrogens in soy. Now, the phytoestrogens in soy are 1,000 times weaker than human estrogen, let alone what we're talking about in cows. And so the interesting thing about drinking soy milk, which contains phytoestrogens, is that the body does recognize that phytoestrogen as estrogen, even though it is not, and will allow it into the cells. And what happens is it replaces the human estrogen in the cell. And what actually happens, it reduces the overall estrogen dramatically. So the exact opposite of what these people are saying is true. And I want to also address too your lactose intolerance. Lactose intolerance is a misnomer, because people who can drink cow milk and don't exhibit any outward effects are lactose persistent.